Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this broadcast. My name is Adi from Sabah, Malaysia, and I will be your host for tonight. I hope that everyone is doing fine and always keeps everything clean. On behalf of the Jesselton Philharmonic Orchestra, we would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is tuning in to our broadcast tonight. If there is any question that you would like to ask our guest tonight, leave it on the Q&A below. And for YouTube viewer, leave your question in the comment section. For your information, JPO is organizing an international virtual music festival this upcoming 18th to 20th of December. There will be a Maestro Clinic music unboxing discussion forum and music performance on each day during the festival. This festival is a collaboration of maestros, professors, professional and amateur musicians, teachers, and students alike exchanging and sharing ideas through a virtual platform. For more info, please go to our JPO Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page. Don't forget to press the like and follow button. JPO are very honored to be able to invite Bernice Ooi with the topic Insights from an Orchestral Musician. Bernice Ooi is a violinist in the Royal Swedish Orchestra, the resident orchestra at the Royal Swedish Opera in Stockholm, Sweden. She has the honor of being the orchestra's first and only Southeast Asian throughout its history of almost 500 years. Back home in Malaysia, she served as the concertmaster of the Malaysia Bach Festival Orchestra and has performed regularly with the Malaysian Philharmonic Orchestra. As a founding member of the ensemble Virama, Bernice plays chamber music and presents workshops and outreach projects at schools and universities. She was previously a core member of the Hyogo Performing Arts Center Orchestra in Japan and has served as the assistant concertmaster of the Civic Orchestra of Chicago. Now, without further ado, let us invite Bernice Ooi for the interview. Hi there, Bernice. How are you?
Hi, Adi. Thanks for having me here.
So, where are you right now, Bernice?
I'm in Stockholm, and
Stockholm.
I'm actually at the Royal Swedish Opera, and this
Ah,
is the foyer that the orchestra would relax in. It's the
wow.
orchestra foyer.
It looks
And
nice.
behind me, if you see
Mhm.
that big that black thing, it's a picture of all of the members of the orchestra. I think in
It's
their
quite big.
475th
Wow.
anniversary when they were celebrating that. And then over on that side of the wall, those
Mhm.
are pictures of all, not all, but those are pictures of the old, the past conductors that they've had.
I see. Okay, now, can you tell us more about the video we have seen at the beginning of this broadcast?
Yes. So this video is from 2 years ago,
Mhm.
2018, and that video is of me and a good friend, Dr. Kristen Yun, and we were playing the Zoltan Kodai's duo for violin and cello, and that was a particularly crazy week because this friend, Dr. Kristen, she is a cello professor at the Colorado Mesa University, and we met when we were students at Indiana University in the U.S. And she was actually able to come to Malaysia in 2017 and 2018 to play with Ensemble Virama. So that was like a really big, yeah, it was so nice for us to be able to play with her. And she's obviously so great. And that week, we played 4 concerts in one
Mhm.
week. We played one concert at Dechiso in PJ.
Mhm.
No, in KL, Bandar Sri Damansara, with Virama. We played a second concert at Malacca, just like the day after or 2 days after, in Staccato Studio. And we played, I remember we did Trout Quintet as well as this Kodai duo. And then a few days later, we did this a lecture recital with Dr. Andrew Filmer at
Ah, I see.
Sunway University. And that is this video that you watched is a clip from that lecture recital. And also, Dr. Kristen studied with the really famous cello professor Janos Starker, who's Hungarian, and Kodai is Hungarian. You can hear all of those like Hungarian folk tunes. So she was like she was the best person to talk about and to give a lecture recital on this piece. And then a few days later, we played that duo as well as some piano trios in Thailand, in Bangkok. So that week was an absolutely crazy week. And then and Kristen was also, she was not well. She had all these stomach problems. So, but she was an amazing and fantastic musician to work with.
Okay. Now, let us talk now about the topic for today, which is insight from an orchestral musician. Okay. How long have you been playing in an orchestra, Bernice?
Okay, so I started playing violin when I was like 6 years old, I think. And I believe since I was 11, I've been playing in orchestra. I remember my mom taking my sister and I to Chenmo school on Sundays, and we would play at the what it used to be called that PJ Youth Symphony Orchestra, I think, or chamber strings. Anyway, something like that. And every Sunday, and that was my first kind of first view, first experience of trying to play little bits of Beethoven 5 or Schubert 5 and things, and Haydn symphonies. And when I was 15, I was very, very blessed to be able to go to school in the UK, in Wells Cathedral School, and I was kind of just thrown head first into this world, this big orchestra. And I remember the first orchestra rehearsal I did was it was Shostakovich 10th, and I had no idea how to play it. I couldn't follow. I was, all the notes looked like Tauge on the page, and and you know, there's this kind of idea that orchestra playing is easy, that you know, you're just one out of like 100 musicians. It shouldn't be. It's not so difficult, but it is, and yeah. So anyway, so I've been playing orchestras ever since, from you know, this community orchestra to school orchestras, and then when I was in university also, there was a big emphasis on playing orchestra, a lot of requirements, and after university, I did these training orchestras. So the picture here that you see right now is not anymore. Yes, that one. The conductor, the dude without hair, he's Jaap van Zweden. He is the conductor of the New York Philharmonic. Yeah, and Hong Kong Philharmonic. But there was a year in I believe 2010 till 2011, I auditioned, and I was a member of the Civic Orchestra of Chicago. And that is the training orchestra of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. So it was this kind of in-between thing. We were like, we would have sectionals where the Chicago Symphony Orchestra members would teach us. And when I could ask for chamber music coachings with their members, and we would have some concerts with conductors who came to conduct them. So it was this really amazing opportunity. So this is a picture from after one of the performances. We played Tchaikovsky 5 with him. So that was my training orchestra years with Civic Orchestra, as well as in Japan. I was in the Hyogo Performing Arts Center Orchestra, and after that.
So that's a question from me. So you are now a part of an orchestra, right? So how does one get a job in an orchestra?
Right. Okay. So yeah, I was talking. I was talking about training orchestras right now, just now. So those are kind of like stepping stones. How do you get a job actually in a full-time job in an orchestra? Basically, you look at the audition websites, and you look for vacancies. There are a few websites that post these things. One website that is called musicalchairs.com, and another website is called Muvac, MUVAC, and you find that orchestras would list their vacancies and their openings, and you find something that you're interested in, and then you apply. And when you apply, you send in your resume, and then they send you a list of audition excerpts, and then usually you have to go to do an audition. Usually you have to go and do a live audition. But these days, yes.
So talking about audition, would you mind sharing with us on how the general process of auditioning for the orchestra?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So these days, because of COVID, many orchestras are kind of stopping their live auditions, because in many orchestras, candidates would fly from all over the world to do a live audition, and it's very common in the US or in Europe or also in Australia, that there will be one opening, one vacancy, and then there would be maybe 100 applicants or 200 even, and then maybe 100 people show up to do live auditions. And of course, during this time, it's a little bit difficult to do that. So nowadays, some orchestras are looking at doing more recorded auditions, maybe for the first round or so. But of course, this is still early days that they are considering these things. But since MPO is, I think maybe most of your viewers know MPO very well. MPO does live auditions as well as these recorded video auditions. Yes. So what you have to do is you go and you apply, you send your resume, and then they send to you a list of what is required for your audition. So there's always a requirement for solo pieces. So for violin, since I'm a violinist, and you are a violinist too, always, really almost without a doubt, there is a requirement for a Mozart violin concerto, 3, 4, or 5. And usually always the first movement, most likely with a cadenza. And sometimes they might even specify, and I know in Japan they would specify, they want the Joachim cadenza or something. And in Europe, they like to also ask for the second movement, maybe with or without a cadenza. And then usually they also want to hear something like a romantic concerto first movement, or could be maybe some Bach. But usually very common Mozart concerto, romantic concerto. So I'm just talking to violinists here. But of course, cellists, you have to play like Bach as well as a concerto like Dvorak or something like that. But yeah, from a violinist's perspective. And then after that, you have a whole long list of excerpts, orchestra excerpts. So for violin, there's always some Mozart, usually Mozart 39 or 35 or something to that they want to, they're looking for your sound, they're looking for how well you control your bow. There's always a spiccato excerpt, like Mozart 39, the last movement, like the scherzo movements of like Beethoven 3, Beethoven 9, Schumann number 2, the scherzo movement, and Mendelssohn, Midsummer Night's Dream Scherzo. So there's and then there's always the big long romantic phrase things that they want to hear your sound. They want to hear how well you can control your bow, like maybe Brahms 4, Brahms 3, all these things. So and always something also flashy, something really flashy like Strauss Don Juan or something like that. So lots of different things. So I'm talking now about the audition repertoire requirements for a symphony orchestra. I can talk later about like the difference between that and maybe an opera orchestra kind of thing. But since there's way more symphony orchestras in the world than opera orchestras, so yeah, I will talk about this. And a lot of times it's really hard to prepare these excerpts because they're quite short, and it's like you've got 1 minute. You've got and they're usually very difficult. You don't get to kind of warm up into it. You've just got to go. And so you learn these excerpts, you learn all these things, and then you get to the audition on the day. And then maybe there's like 50 other people there. And then in Europe, you will take, you would draw numbers. And then if you're number 50 out of 50, you just wait the whole time. Like it's incredibly nerve-wracking to sit in a big room with, 50 other people and just waiting. And then, maybe if you're lucky, maybe at the last half an hour or so, you might get your own practice room. And then it's very difficult to just kind of calm down and put yourself in the zone and say, all right, I'm just gonna go and play this. And oftentimes there's many rounds. In MPO, usually not so many rounds, usually maybe 1 or 2. But because for strings, there tends to be less applicants. But if there's lots and lots of applicants, like in the US or in Europe, there's often many rounds. And the first round is usually, you just play maybe 10 minutes, 10 minutes. You play the exposition from your concerto, and then you play 2 excerpts, and you're done. You're out of there. So oftentimes it's really very discouraging. You finish the first round and they say, okay, well, we will advance. We would like to hear candidate number 12, number 16, and number 28 and 34. And your number wasn't called, and you're like, oh, I came all the way here for nothing. So that can be very, very discouraging. But I will talk later about how not to feel so discouraged. But just saying how this works. Then in the second round you'll play more stuff. Maybe the romantic concerto as well as more excerpts. And then in the last round, if very often in Europe, they like to have a chamber music round. So you also have, maybe they would say, learn the second violin part from the Mozart dissonance quartets and something else. Like for my audition here, I had to, my chamber music round was from the opening to Madame Butterfly. And it's this unison bit that all strings play in unison. So then I play with the other members of the orchestra and principals of the orchestra, and I just have to jump in and play in unison with them who have played for years and years together. But it was actually really fun because you get to the last round and finally you play with people. Because in the first few rounds you don't play with people, so you're just playing alone. In Europe, though, for your concerto, they usually provide a pianist to play with you. So, but that could be a nice thing to play with someone, but it could be also very distracting if you only saw him 10 minutes ago, and it's not together, and you're playing the audition and it's not together, and you're like, like why is it not working? So yeah, it goes both ways. But so that's generally how it works. It's a lot of it has to do with just keeping yourself really calm and knowing the music really, 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 really well. And I would say that preparing for an audition is one of the most intense things there is, for a musician, because you're preparing for something that's very different from the actual music making. Because when you're playing in the orchestra, you're playing with 100 other people. You're relying on cues. You're relying on the conductor. You are playing off people. But in an audition, you're alone. You just have to do it. You have to go for it. You can't hide behind anything. So it's a very intense preparation process, and I do have I do have advice for people who who are interested in that route, but it does, and a lot of it has to do with just being very, very organized, knowing, like, you apply for the audition maybe 2 months beforehand, but really you should know your concertos way in advance. You shouldn't start learning a Brahms concerto 2 months before an audition. That's not that's not wise. So to be really, really organized, to say, okay, I know these orchestra things, I know the so and so excerpts, but I don't know these things, and I have 2 months before the audition. I want to be completely ready 2 weeks before the audition. I don't want to have to learn anything else 2 weeks before. And then and you want to set aside 1 or 2 weeks where you play for lots of people. You play for teachers, you play for colleagues, you play for friends, and so that you get feedback. And then during that time, you just have to organize yourself. Like, okay, from day 1 to day 5, I'm going to practice everything really slowly, just really, really, really slowly. And then from day 5 to day 10, I'm going to record myself playing it slowly and see how that works. And then from 5, that kind of thing. So to kind of make a plan and stick to it. And yeah. And
right. So let's say it's obvious that if you fail, you just try again. But if you got in, is there like a trial and probation?
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So very, it's quite rare that there isn't some kind of testing process. It's pretty much every orchestra I know has a trial process and a probation process. It's always different though. Every orchestra is different, but there will be at least a few weeks, if not years, of trials and probations. Very often, it's a little bit inhumane, but there are some orchestras that maybe they have 2 openings. Okay, let's say they have 1 opening, and at the audition, they cannot decide, and they decide to take 5 people for 1 opening. And so then they say, okay, we have 5 people, and we'll take these 5 people for trials. But that they only have one job. So 4 of these 5 people will not get the job, and maybe they give everyone 3 weeks of trial each. So you really have to be super prepared for your trial time. They always say that the trial period is for them to know how to get to know you. Because in the audition they already know that you can play the violin, but at the trial they just want to know how you fit. That's what they say. um, but the thing is also that in in an orchestra there's 100 people or so, and in I play violin, so my section is really big. I play in the second violin section, and that section is also very big, and each person in that section has an idea how what their perfect stand partner should be like, and it's going to be different. So so yeah, in one sense, I've been given this advice before to um, don't worry about what we think, just be yourself. We want to see who you are. But at the same time, you know that, well, if you want to get the job, you have to please, like, you have to please them. But at the same time, you know that you cannot please everyone. So it's a very big, it's a very difficult balance, I think. But what happens usually is if there's more people on trial than the positions, eventually, hopefully they decide in the end, and they choose a winner. And then after that, there's still a probation period. You don't get the job right away. You still have a probation period of a year or so. In my experience here at the Opera House, with the Royal Swedish Orchestra, I was really very blessed. I did not have to go through a shorter trial, because there were 2 openings, and they hired 2 people. So me and another American guy. So it was a blessing that I didn't have to kind of fight with someone, to compete with someone. The person that I was competing with was myself. So yeah.
All right, so let's move on with the next question. Preparing for a symphony or an opera would definitely need a long preparation. How should one prepare and practice for it?
Yeah, so especially, in this trial process, trial and probation process, and also when you are preparing for the audition as well. When you are preparing an audition list, the requirements for the audition, you have maybe 14 or to 20 to 30 excerpts of many symphonies, and really there's no shortcuts. You just have to know all of those symphonies. You and I actually think the easiest way is to listen, to just listen again and a lot and a lot. And the next thing would be the next thing actually would be when you've practiced really slowly, and once you can sort of play it in tempo, once you learn the music, I think it's really helpful to play with to play with the recording. So let's say you have, I mean, and these days it's so easy. You have Spotify, you have almost everything on YouTube. Long time ago, it was much harder to find recordings. But and especially nowadays, like if you wanted to find specifically a recording of MPO playing Scheherazade, you can. Like and if you're auditioning for MPO and you want to hear that, you can get that. And so it's quite easy these days. But what I like to do is, once I can play the notes, then I practice with the recording. So I put I play the recording, put on headphones, and then put on a mute, because when you're playing it, you're really loud. Put on a mute so that you can hear the orchestra, the recording still going, and play along. And I find that is actually the easiest way to hear what else is going on in the orchestra. And that's what and also where conductors tend to slow down or speed up or whatever. And there's a lot of things that I miss when I'm practicing a symphony. Like I don't see and it's like, Mahler would write Beschleunigung, and and or he would write a million German words, and I didn't check every single word what it means. And then I noticed that in the recording they get faster. Okay, well then I look it up. Beschleunigung means getting faster, that kind of thing. And I don't notice a lot of things when I'm practicing myself. I don't notice that I need to wait for the flute part, or I need to listen to the cellos, or there's a pitch here or there. So I find that very, very, very helpful to go through an entire piece with the headphones and listen to all the parts where maybe you have like 15 bars rest in the middle of something, and when you're practicing your own part, of course you're going to jump over the 15 bars rest, but when you're listening, you are realizing what's going on, and then you realize, oh wait, I miscounted, I don't know when to come in. Okay, I missed it. No, this is the time to figure out what problems you have, and how to fix it. So that you realize that you're rushing, or you're slowing down, you're miscounting, you're playing arco instead of pitch, you're all sorts of things. So I find that really the easiest way to practice. And of course, studying the score is also important, but I myself don't do it enough, I would say. I want to add something about this. As I mentioned before, there's this kind of idea that playing an orchestra is really easy, and you can just kind of fake, you can just blend in and not really. But I feel like I suffered from that mentality for a long time, and I had this idea, and so I didn't prepare enough for a long time, and I would say that I was dumb for a long time. I learned it the hard way. I remember when I was subbing with MPO, and I thought that I was prepared, but obviously I wasn't enough. I would miss entrances, or I would rush, or things like that, or I would not play I would play something without sensitivity or whatever. And so I really think that you can't be most people who think that most students who think that they are prepared for orchestra are not. They haven't studied the score. They haven't really. They don't really know what the other parts are doing. They think that they know what their part is, but they don't really. You're missing a direction by the composer, or you're missing a dynamic, or you're missing even you're playing too slow or too fast, or the bow stroke is wrong, and a lot of things. Yes, you have to. A lot of things. You only know when you get to the rehearsal, when you play in the orchestra, and then you realize, okay, the principal is playing this off the string, and perhaps that's not something that you could have that you realized when you're practicing yourself. But still, the initial preparation before the first rehearsal can be really a lot more than you think. I remember when I was on trial here in my orchestra here, and this was one of the most intense periods things that I've ever done. I played the entire Wagner's Ring Cycle during my trial, and I've never had to cram in so many notes in such a short amount of time, and while being on trial, while them seeing whether I should be in this orchestra or not. And this other colleague, he was also on trial with me, and he had to do the same thing. He told me that he started learning the ring cycle 6 months before that. 6 months. He started slowly practicing each note and listening and everything. Like right after our audition, which was at the end of August 2016, until we started rehearsing this in the orchestra in like April. More than 6 months. He worked on his part. And that's the kind of dedication that I've never seen before, ever. Like, and I felt like I didn't put in enough work. So that's a long answer, but yeah,
It's okay. Don't worry.
this same colleague, he was telling me about how he went to school at Manhattan School of Music in New York, and his first excerpt class teacher, because in many universities you would have special excerpt classes for these auditions, because it's really a very different thing to just have to learn how to play an excerpt for an audition. And his excerpt class teacher was a violinist at the New York Philharmonic. This, I believe, a Russian guy, and this teacher said, there is no reason why one should not win their first orchestra audition. It's the longer it takes for you to win an audition, it just means that you've been dumber for a longer time. so yeah, and in a way it makes sense, because like, yes, you each audition you do increases your experience of learning how to audition, learning that repertoire. But if you did the right preparation before your first one, you would save being dumber for a longer time. Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing with us. Now, JPO is an organization with limited funding which conducts activities like the outreach program. And what advice would you give to us besides organizing concert, workshop, and music camp?
I spoke to Mr. Yap just now, and he was talking about so many amazing things that you're doing. So like outreach things and giving instruments to people, and giving free lessons, and as you said, workshops, music camps, and really quite detailed workshops where you have sectionals and things like that. So I don't have advice. I feel like it's you are already doing so much, and it's something that people can emulate. I would say. I also like what you're doing with the sort of exam board kind of thing. It's having your own examinations is I think is a very helpful thing. I don't think that I don't think that it's important to have a grade 8, an ABRSM, or a Guildhall or a Trinity grade, whatever. That is very secondary, I would say.
All right, thank you for your advice. Now, let's move on to the Q&A section as our time is running short. We have some 2 questions from our attendee on Zoom. Now, the first one, how did you approach your audition preparation? Any tips for audition success?
Yeah, yeah. As I said, just prepare and prepare and prepare. I would say also listen, keep listening. In three ways. First, yeah, listen to recordings and just not just anything, not just your favorite violinist or your favorite orchestra. Um, listen to like current musicians playing old things or current musicians playing new things like new music. Listen to older generation musicians and see how they play. Listen to lots of things, be aware of what's going on. So because I think when you listen, then you develop a sense of what of style of what people do and what a good sound is, what good phrasing is. And then secondly, when you listen, secondly for listening, when you're playing, I feel like even myself, it's very difficult for me to listen to myself when I'm practicing. And that's why listening to recordings is important, because if you don't listen to other people play, you don't have a kind of an idea what your goal is. You don't know what you're trying to achieve, what good sound, what sound you should be having. So when you're practicing, like, try to really raise the level of your listening. Are you really in tune? Are you really playing in time? Are you really, is this rhythm really actually the right rhythm? And to do that, I really encourage recording yourself. And I have noticed this in these few months during COVID time, that so I've been doing a few of these split screen recordings, putting individual recordings together to form a bigger thing. It is almost impossible to get all the parts together without having to move things around a little bit on the computer. It's because when you listen through the earphones and when you play, there's always a lag, and everyone is always slightly off. And I'm not saying that we should be machines, definitely not. But that we can always be more accurate. Like there's and I feel like when it comes to auditions, committees are not going to say they're looking for the perfect player. They will never say that. But I would say that committees are looking for the player who is looking for perfection. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Do you see the difference? Like they will not, they're not going to hire the most perfect player that did not play a single wrong note. No. They're going to want to hire someone with a really good sound and a really and really good rhythm, a really blendable sound. But so perfection in your audition is not number one, but they are looking for someone who wants to be perfect, to that someone that has put in the work, that has that idea of, that they have a goal of perfection and they want to get there. Obviously they're not there, no one is, but that's the kind of mentality they're looking for. And then thirdly, listening. When it comes to listening, when you're playing in a group with people, always listen. I know everyone says play like chamber music, listen, but up your game when it comes to listening. There's you always hear things that you will hear more and more things that you didn't realize, because most people, me included, is stuck in their parts. You have 100 notes on the page. You're just trying to get through them. Well, cared how the flute sounds? Have you cared how your stand partner sounds? Have you so yeah, so listening in three ways, I would say.
All right, moving on. What is the biggest lesson you learn, either as a student or after, that really influences your life as an orchestral musician now?
Wow.
What do you think? What is the
Um,
biggest lesson you learn?
maybe I would say that actually, that this whole thing about being prepared. I just realized more and more as I and so I can share also about this that no, sorry, no, what's the biggest lesson that I've learned? I think just to be humble. I think to be humble is the best. To be the best is the best trait, because if you go into an orchestra and you're like, I deserve this, I deserve being here, I deserve to be in the spot, or actually I deserve to be the concertmaster, and all these players are worse than me. No, that no one likes a player like this, and you can learn from everyone in that group, from the oldest member to the youngest member. You can learn something from everyone. So I think, yeah, going into every rehearsal with humility, I believe is the best.
Okay. Now, a question from YouTube by Andrew Bassclef. To your story on your colleague who was extremely dedicated to the orchestral piece, in your mind, what is the reason for his dedication? Is it passion, dedication, or cultural?
I think it's just who he is. He's just very intense with everything. Um, like so recently I put together a video of my section, the second violin section, playing Joy to the World and Another Thing. My arrangement. You can you can look. My orchestra has a Instagram page, kunliga.hofkapellet. I can write that later.
Okay.
And I put together this video, and he said that he really tried to make every note fit, and his video, his track was the only track that I didn't have to change, like where and his part was all quavers, all eighth notes, and it was just running, and I did not have to change any of those notes. It fit perfectly, and I think it's that kind of attention to detail. He's that's I think I'm I think it's him. It could be also. I don't think it's that cultural. He's American. I don't think. Yeah, maybe Americans are a little more attentive to kind of dynamic contrasts and things like that. I feel like Europeans are more into kind of sound quality, and I think. But I would say that I think he's an anomaly. But I have learned a lot from how detailed he is.
Okay. Now, for the last question for tonight, by Jerome Welsh. How does one build rapport with other orchestra members? Is this important for a musician?
This is a very interesting question, because I remember, I'm pretty sure he doesn't mind that I mentioned this. When I was subbing a lot with MPO, there's this bass player, a really cool guy, Andy, and he would encourage me to go hang out with them, with MPO. After concerts, they like to hang out at Chino's and drink and things like that. And I was always so awkward. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to socialize. And especially I feel like that's a very difficult thing to do as a substitute or as someone on trial, because on the one hand you want to develop a good relationship with your colleagues. On the other hand, you don't want to make it seem as though um, you're buying their favor, like that you want that you go and drink, with them or party with them so that they will give you the job. So I think it's a difficult balance. I would say that, like, hey, 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 yeah, hey. No, it's okay. Hey, hey. This is the trombone section of my orchestra, actually.
Hello.
I'm having an interview, and this is the trombone section. Are you guys doing Christmas? You concert? Nice. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I'm. Yes, I am. But yeah. Oh, okay. You're having drinks. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, Christmas is near.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that, like, when it comes to socializing, and I remember there was this once, like, that uh, this someone told me, like, in a Russian orchestra, you would not get the job if you don't go drinking with them at least
Mhm.
at least once. Like, they will not say hi to you, or they will not feel like you are friends with them unless you go drinking with them. Thankfully, that has not been the case for me. I got this job here without having to do very much drinking, at all. So I but yeah, it is a balance. I think it's important to be friendly. Um, as I said, humility. Never think that you're better than the rest. I think that really goes a long way. If you go in to a rehearsal and knowing, with the mindset that you're going to learn a lot in this rehearsal, you are going to grow as a musician, um, during these rehearsals, during these concerts, and that you're going to have a really good experience, doing this. Already that raises you know the environment, the morale already of that, yeah, around you. So,
Okay, thank you for the answer. Now, all right, everyone, we have come to the end of tonight's broadcast. If you want to rewatch and listen to this broadcast again, it will be available after this broadcast ends. Thank you so much for tuning into this broadcast. Thank you for all the questions, and thank you everyone for making this broadcast to happen. Again, I would like to inform you that JPO is organizing an international virtual music festival this upcoming 18th to 20th of December. At You can check at our website www.jpomusicfestival.org. And this festival is a collaboration of maestro, professors, professional and amateur musicians, teachers, and students alike exchanging and sharing ideas throughout a virtual platform. There will be about 43 speakers, more than 100 performers, 3 concerts, 23 maestros clinic, 6 music unboxing, and 4 forums. You may check the schedule for each day at festival website. And if you want to know more about our speaker, maestro, and moderator, you can go to this page. Okay, that's it for tonight. Be safe, and be healthy, and do stay at home. I will lead the prayer for tonight's program. Please pray in whatever faith you believe in for COVID-19. Here goes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma inni a'udzubika minal barsi wal junani wal juzami wa min sa'il askam. Oh Allah, I seek your refuge from leprosy, insanity, mutilation, and from all serious illness. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La yadhuru ma'ismi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samawati wa ma al-sami'ul alim. In the name of Allah, with whose name nothing on the earth or in the heaven can cause harm, and He is the all-hearing and the all-knowing. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Wa sallimu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. And again, the JPO would like to thank Bernice Ooi for being with us tonight. Thank you again, Bernice, for being with us.
and thanks for having me.
And it has been a lovely and wonderful evening with you. And again, good night and see you all